In this video tutorial, we'll discuss how to install Websense's OCR server on an existing Triton Data Security Suite platform. Before we start, I wanted to recommend that we go to the website and do a little research on the feature before we deploy it so we can better understand what's required and how to use it. And this is true of any feature you're looking to deploy with Websense. That's best done by going to websense.com and then clicking on the support field. And then you can type in whatever you're looking to do. And in this case, it'll be OCR server. So we'll type that in, press search. And this narrow results field on the left is really handy because there's so many different versions at play. So what we're going to do is look specifically for OCR servers. It is a data security feature, so we'll click that. And I'm using 7.8.4 for this demo, so we'll click that. And that'll narrow your results to very specific information. Inside of these, you'll find various different things. So this one looks pretty specific. In this particular help document, let's focus on the accuracy field. This is something that's worth consulting, and we'll discuss this later in the tutorial. But this shows the three major modes available for OCR: fast, accurate, and balanced, and gives you specific information about each mode. Obviously, accurate is more CPU intensive, but it gives more accurate results, while fast is faster would allow the OCR server to take more load, and then balance is in the middle. So that's pretty handy information. There's some other information in here about languages, and I'll discuss that as we go. If we go back, this help document's also kind of nice. It actually tells you exactly what will be put through the OCR engine, and specific information about how PDFs are handled, because PDFs can have actual searchable and scannable text in them. So in this particular case, it explains that those will go through regular DSS system before the OCR server, and if there's nothing to extract, then it'll send it to an OCR server. You can see other information here about the size. So this is very helpful because there is a lot of things that OCR will handle, and this is very specific about that. So again, you can get to this from the support page. And also from your My Websense login, you can actually go and download the Triton installer, which I've already done, and we'll show that in a moment. So really quickly, before I install the OCR server, I'm going to go ahead and log into my Triton management console and just verify and show you how you can tell if your OCR server is already installed. So I've already actually logged into the Data Security tab, but if you're not already in Data Security, you'll want to click that. And then we'll go to the Settings tab and System Modules. And this will show all the system modules available to our DSS suite. In my particular lab environment, this is very simple. We have an ESG email gateway, we have a Websense content gateway, and then we have the actual Triton infrastructure, and you can see we have crawlers on that. What you'll notice is nowhere will you find OCR server. OCR server has to be installed on a Windows server, and it cannot be installed on the primary Triton infrastructure server. So you will want to spin up a separate box for this. And the nature of OCR, it is fairly CPU intensive, so it's nice to have that on a separate box. So what we're going to do is go through that installation, and you'll see by the time we're done, we'll have an OCR server in here. We'll configure some things, and we'll go ahead and send some data through the OCR server so you can see how that works. In my particular case, I have a VMware environment, and I actually have a Windows Server 2012 box already on that is ready for the OCR server to be installed. This does have to install on Windows, so what we'll do is start up well, it's already started up. And I've already downloaded the Triton installer here, and I am logged in as an admin. Obviously, you want a static IP address on this because we are going to reference this OCR server directly from other modules, so you will have to set a static IP address. I've already done that, so what I'm going to do is actually open the installer, and this will take a while to extract, so I'll come back in a few minutes and we'll go ahead and resume once this is done extracting. Okay, the installer extraction is wrapping up, and I did want to mention that this is the full Triton installer that I'm using that I downloaded from mywebsense.com, Websense Triton 784 setup.exe. It's about 3 gigabytes. So it takes a few moments to extract. and then it'll walk us through the installation settings. Okay, now that the Websense Triton setup screen, our wizard is started, we're going to go ahead and start this. You can read through the subscription agreement, accept it, press next. Now, I always recommend you use custom as it gives you more granular control over what settings are going to install, and particularly in this case, we're just installing one component, so I'm going to select custom. And then there's a summary screen, so we'll press next again, and that'll bring us to the Websense Triton setup. The OCR server in question today is part of the Data Security suite, so what we'll do is install specifically components from the Data Security suite. I'll use this moment to explain that in my particular case I have some Windows dependencies already installed, but fortunately if you're running through this the first time, we will install any Microsoft related packages that might need to be installed, and I'll show you those in a moment. But if you're prompted for any screens about installing some Microsoft components or other third-party components, you won't see that here, but you may see that in your environment. So we're going to go ahead and press next to get started. I'm going to use all the default installation directories for this, so I'll just press next. Under components, the crawlers are required and the agents are, so I'll go ahead and leave all of that installed. We're just installing the entire Data Security Server suite, which includes the OCR engine. This is the fingerprint database, which is related to some of the crawlers. We'll use defaults there. This is a very lightweight virtual machine. I only have 40 gigs for the entire operating system for this one, so I'm getting a little bit of a warning that says I don't have as much free space as Websense recommends. I'm going to hit yes. You shouldn't see that if you're in a production environment. This is a lab. This particular VM only has one IP, so I'll select the only one, but this would be the IP address used for this particular instance. This is an important step and actually pretty nice, because what we're going to do is address the Triton Manager, which is already installed on another box. So I'm going to use the FQDN for that. We're going to use the Triton login admin and password. This will actually go in and help set up the OCR server, and you'll see when this is done installing how trivial it is and how automatic it is. This is actually asking for a domain user, so I'm going to go ahead and just use administrator. You may have a service account for this, but again, since this is a lab, I'll just use my administrator account. And we're going to press the install button, and that'll actually begin the installation. This could take some time just depending on the performance of your machine, but not terribly too long, maybe 30 minutes or so at the most. While that's going or starting, and I'll pause it so we don't have to watch the whole thing, I will quickly show you some of the other components that will be installed. You may be prompted for, I won't since they're already installed. But what you'll see is we put a SharePoint client in there as part of our crawler, and you'll see some of these Microsoft Visual C++ packs in there, as well as an Exchange component. So those will automatically install if they're not already on the system, which won't be in my case. So I'm going to go ahead and let this run for a while, and I'll come back when it's done at the end. Okay, the installation is done now, so I can go ahead and close this screen up by pressing finish, and then we can close out of this. And you'll notice that on this particular machine now that there is going to be some Websense services in the services area. You can see actually there is the OCR engine right there. Everything's going to be running. It'll be automatic. And that pretty much wraps up what you need to do on the actual OCR server itself. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and close out of these items here. If I press refresh on my Systems Modules tab, I'll actually see DSS server on ocr.bblabs.com, which was the host name of that machine I created. And that's really quickly how you can see that it's installed. One nice thing is that it automatically came in here as part of that installation process. So a lot of the hard work's already been done. And if we expand that, we can actually see all of the modules that are running on that, including extra crawlers. And you can disable those. Maybe you'll find use for them as secondary discovery crawlers. But do be mindful that the OCR server itself can be CPU intensive if it gets a lot of traffic. So sort of be warned if you put too much traffic on it and too many things going on it. So you can disable some of those. There's also endpoint server on here. So if we actually click on these, we can disable that server altogether. And since this really is primarily our OCR server, if we click on the actual OCR server, we can see a lot of information that's important, including that accuracy mode. By default, it'll be balanced, which is probably good enough for majority of people, but if you prefer, you can go with a more accurate approach. And if you remember at the beginning of the video, one of the help documents that we found on the support site sort of explained the difference between these modes. And in my particular case, this is a demo lab environment, so I'm not going to throw a lot of traffic at it, so accurate definitely works best for me. But you can always adjust this at any time, and I'm going to show you some other areas where you can see how much traffic's going to your OCR engine. And of course, since it's a Windows server, you can monitor CPU utilization through various Windows utilities as well. By default, English is already ready to go for OCR. You can see the plethora of different languages Websense provides. Anything with the asterisk requires a language pack. There's some information down here. Since I did create this I made this change to accuracy to accurate, I'm going to go ahead and press OK to save that change. And one other thing you're going to want to do is make sure that all of your policy engines are using this OCR. I've seen in some cases that it doesn't automatically select that. So with my Websense Content Gateway, if I click on its policy engine, you can see here this checkbox, Enable OCR by the OCR server. Of course, if you have a larger environment, larger deployment with a lot of gateways and a lot of different policy engines, you can very easily install multiple OCR servers by repeating the process that I've shown and then selecting each OCR server for each policy engine. So that's it for the Websense Content Gateway. It's the same thing for our email security gateway. We're going to use the same OCR server, etc. So when I'm done with this, what I'm going to do is press deploy, and it's going to go and make all those changes, which in this case is the accuracy mode and disabling of the endpoint server on that. Depending on the size of your environment, deployments can take a while, but we'll push all this information out to the various policy engines, etc. Okay, now that all the new policies have been deployed across all the different assets, we'll actually use the OCR server, look at how incidents show up, and then I'll show you some statistics of the OCR server itself so you can sort of verify that it's working and how well it's working, etc. So we're going to go back to the main tab now, and I'm just going to go to my most recent incidents, which right now there are none, just because I cleared this out for the sakes of this demo. And what I'm going to do is go over to a client system that's on this domain and upload some content to a couple different web services, as well as send an email kind of to myself outside domain with that content, and I will show both the Websense Content Gateway as well as the Email Security Gateway utilizing the OCR server to inspect it. So I'm going to load up vSphere again and go to a Windows 7 client that's on domain. We're going to open it. What I'm going to do is upload some files to various websites. I have Dropbox here as well as this convenient website, dataleaktest.com, which just allows you to test your DLP and DTP by uploading or copying text into a form. But since we're doing images, we will be uploading a file. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and show you what that file looks like. I'm going to use this JPEG image here. This just has a bunch of erroneous kind of fake information I use, but it's got things that look like social security numbers, phone numbers, contact information, date of birth, credit card numbers, all sorts of things that they probably wouldn't want to leave your network unless to a trusted source. This is a actual image. You can see that it's not text. I mean, it is text, but it's in an image. A normal DLP system that doesn't have OCR doesn't know how to convert this into text, and that's what we're using the OCR or Optical Character Recognition system for. So we're going to go ahead and pass this through some websites as well as email. OCR engine will convert this image to text, run analysis on it, and then determine, this looks like suspicious information. And then depending on policy, and in my case, the policy will be to block that. So I'll go ahead and close this now, and we'll go over to this website again. And we scroll down here. There's the ability to upload a file, so standard sort of web uploading, and allows you to test SSL off and on. A lot of systems don't do SSL. Ours obviously does. I'll use Dropbox to show SSL because it's probably a more popular service. But for this, we'll just use regular HTTP. I'm going to go ahead and find that file, which in this case is this JPEG here. And I'm going to go ahead and upload it, and it's going to send that JPEG to data leak test. And if it's successful, it'll say data leaked successfully. But in our case, the Websense Content Gateway actually blocked it, saying it violates corporate policy. I'm going to show you what that looks like from the Websense administration side in a moment. What I'll also do now is switch over to Dropbox. So you can see this is an HTTPS, a secure tunnel we're logged into. So because of our Websense Content Gateway inspects SSL traffic, we'll be able to run the same OCR server use the same OCR server with Websense Content Gateway even over an HTTPS. So what we're going to do is upload this, and I uploaded it earlier today, but we'll go ahead and try again. And it's trying to upload. And this was before I had the policy, just testing, but you can see it's trying to upload. And Dropbox is unique. This advanced uploader will try actually 3 times to upload it before it gives up. So again, it did an upload error here. Something went wrong. What it doesn't know is that we OCR'd it and we blocked it. I'll show you what that traffic looks like right now, actually. So we'll go ahead and press done. You can see it's not on Dropbox at all. We stopped it from going on there. I'll refresh this completely so you can see that those files aren't there. If I switch back over to my incidents log, which we looked at in a moment was blank, and press refresh, we're going to see some instances come in here. So I can actually see the data leak test incident right here. The channel was HTTP as opposed to HTTPS. It went through the content gateway, which in my case is proxy.bbLabs.com. Here was the user that did it, the time, exactly what happened, where it was tried to be uploaded to. These are the violations. We had PCI for credit card numbers. We had U.S. Social Security numbers, so all sorts of bad stuff that we didn't want to leak. And per the policy, it blocked it. If I click over to forensics, you can see the actual file. We do store it in our repository, so as an administrator, you'd be able to look at it and determine what it was, and then remediate based on that, or have a nice talk with George Washington about what he was doing. Similarly, with Dropbox, it's basically the same file, so we're going to see a lot of the same information. It was an HTTPS encrypted transfer. And as I mentioned earlier, Dropbox's advanced uploader is going to try to upload it 3 times before it gives up completely and fails it out. So that's why we see three attempts in here. And you can see they're spaced about 5 seconds apart at 205 kilobytes, reasonable internet connection. That sounds about right. So what we're going to do now is I'll go ahead and minimize this again. and I'll go ahead and try and send that email to myself. So I'm on the BB Labs domain, and my particular rule, I would allow me to send this in domain, so I could send it to somebody else on bblabs.com, and it would go through. But my policy prohibits leaking files outside that domain. And we can talk about policies in another video, but that's fairly straightforward to set up. So what I'm going to do is send myself on bblabs.net, which is technically an off-domain account. Here's that info. Sorry, I type faster than my VM can keep up with. Here's an info you were asking about. It's your standard sort of cryptic message here. We'll select that 206K image. We're going to go ahead and press send. It's actually going to go ahead and send this, so it'll be in my sent items. I mean, it's out and it's done. And that's because the OCR server is being done at the email gateway, not on the client itself. So, it's not a CPU intensive task for the client in this particular case. So we'll go ahead and minimize this now. Go back to my incidents report. Go ahead and press refresh. And actually, it's going to take a moment because it's actually still processing it. I could go dump into my email security log and look at it over in email security as well. But here it is. What we had is network email where we were trying to send it to. And in this particular case, since it's email and we can actually have it quarantined, and I could decide to release it later. It's not something you can do in real time on a web upload. But once again, it's blocked. We have a lot of forensics information here. Here's the email stuff. Here's that attachment again, the subject, pretty much everything you'd need to see. So you can see how effective it is across multiple channels. So that's pretty much the demo of OCR. What I'll go to now is show you how you can dive in a little bit. Because here it says that the policy engine was appliance esg.bblabs.com. Here it says the policy engine was proxy.bblabs.com. So this is the Websense content gateway versus the email security gateway. It doesn't specifically say OCR was used, but if it's a JPEG, it's always going to be OCR because JPEG doesn't have scannable text in it. But if you really want to see what's happening on your system, you can go over here to System Health. And you can look at all the sort of traffic and CPU usage used by your various components, but we can actually go right into the OCR server itself and click on that, and I'll go and change both of these to last 30 minutes. And you can see sort of what's the load during different times of day. I went last 30 minutes here, but for corporation maybe you could see maybe there's batch jobs being run at the end of the day, and that's a little bit problematic. You'll be able to see a big spike there. Obviously, sending just a few files isn't going to register very high. And then down here, you can see the number of requests. So at 4:23 p.m. was the 3 simultaneous requests or subsequent requests to Dropbox. Everything else was just sort of one-off requests. And then you can log the number of requests during a period, the number of timeouts, etc. And that pretty much wraps up how to install, configure, and test the OCR server on a Websense Triton Data Security suite package. Thank you for watching this video.